Long ago, I unlocked Ultimate Gley, but I really didn't use her all that much. I kind of leveled her up for the MR and then just put her on the back burner. It wasn't until the end game content like Void Erosion Purge, which brought about the weapons cores and the Abyss intercepts, that I really got into using Ultimate Gley. And that's when I realized that she is really a very easy to use, very solid and capable descendant that you can take into any type of content, whether it's missions, operations, void intercepts, with minimal changes between them, whether you're in a group or solo. So we're going to talk about Ultimate Gley right now. The first Descendants has always had Descendants that were considered a little OP. In the beginning, it was Bunny, then Contagion Freyna. Within Ness, she came out of the gate pretty hard and ended up getting nerfed in some balancing patches. And as of this point, we've got Serena out there just dominating content. So possibly a nerf coming towards her in the future. But through it all, we've had Ultimate Gley. Now, she's incredibly good at what she does, but she's not so overwhelming and so overpowering that I feel like she's a great character to invest in because she kind of does fly under the radar. You're going to be able to get these things done, and be pretty good at doing it without having to worry that any investments and time and effort you put into upgrading her is going to get taken away in the future. So let's take a look at how I have my Gley set up, which I refer to her as the Everyday Gley. But in order to get Gley, you're going to need to get yourself some patterns. Now, the two ways to do that is you could either do a 400 dungeon, which will drop two patterns that you then take into a Colossi battle in order to get a chance to get her parts. Or you could go do an outpost. You'll need Sharon in order to do that because you will have to do the infiltrations. And then you can take those patterns that you get over to one of the fusion reactors and turn it in, and then there's your shot to get it. Honestly, it's really dealer's choice, whichever you prefer. The 400 dungeons, because it's pretty easy to get that top score mark, gives you two patterns per run, and it doesn't take them too long. You do only get one pattern, and not every run when you do the void fusion reactors, but they're pretty easy to do by yourself. If you don't have a Sharon to do it, or if you need help with that, getting any of the patterns, whichever route you want to go, just drop something down in the comments. Let me know. I'd be more than happy to give people a hand doing this. But yeah, it's either way, whichever one you decide to do. Now, each one of these patterns is going to have a shape stabilizer assigned to it. In this case, we're looking at Form 8. All of her pattern pieces have a 6% drop chance, which is really low. But if you use the shape stabilizer, you can get that from 6 to 10. And if you use the advanced shape stabilizer, you can get that from 6 up to 32. And that works for her stabilizer, her enhanced cells, everything. And it does also work for the code as well if you need to. But yeah, what you want to do is figure out which way you want to do this and go out and get the shape stabilizers, preferably the advanced ones, and then head on out. Now, in order to get the code, you're definitely going to have to do some type of a boss fight in the Colossi Battles. It's the only way you can get the code. But again, see which shape stabilizer you need, and it turns it from a 6% to 32, which is pretty good. Now, I want to talk about her skills, and this is honestly what kind of confused me a little bit and what kept me from playing Gley sooner. In this case, I have the Predator Instinct Transcendent module equipped on my build, so that's why it's called Predator Instinct for her one. But basically, all this does is this cycles you between frenzied and non-frenzied state. And what that means is her following skills are going to have different effects depending on whether or not you're frenzied or you're not. By itself, you can see here I've gradually increased my attack based on how long a firearm is fired. And that is once I'm in a frenzied state. But really, this is just cycling between the two. So it depends on what you want your following skills to do, will determine whether or not you want to be in that frenzied or non-frenzied state. And you can cycle between these states. It doesn't affect anything if you turn it off or on throughout the mission. Her second skill is called Life Siphon. It is a dimension skill. And what this does is when you're in a frenzied state, it increases the amount of damage you're doing proportional to HP. And if you're non-frenzied, then you're gaining vigor, which is giving you kind of a damage decrease. You can see in the little animation there, she just kind of throws her arm up and blows up those little red balls. And those things, as you kill bad guys, you're creating those. And that's what you're doing with that. I don't use Life Siphon very often, but it can come in handy in certain situations. By far the most common skill I use is this one, which is Increased Sensory. Now when you're in Frenzied state, you get Maximized Lethality, which just means bullets aren't consumed when you pull the trigger. If you get something that's a high rate of fire weapon, this thing can really deal out a ton of damage when you're in this state. When you're non-frenzied, then you're just getting a maximized recovery and some speed boosts. Now this is a very critical skill, and one thing that matters a lot is you want your duration for this skill to last longer than the cooldown time required. Basically meaning you want to be able to throw this skill, and as you're using it, it will be cooled down and ready to use again before it expires. As you can see here, I'm very close on mine. I'm at 9.8 cooldown on a 10.1 duration, which means I can stay in this increased sensory state throughout the entire mission without having any downtime whatsoever. And that is huge, because that allows you to just keep pumping out massive amounts of damage, which is what makes her so good in the Void Erosion Purges and against Colossi. This is the skill that you're going to use most often when you're playing Gley. And finally we have her fourth skill, which is called Massacre, which, depending on how many of those Orbs of Life you've collected, you'll summon a unique weapon that then does a ton of damage. It's either going to do increased damage proportional to your HP if you're frenzied, or if you're not frenzied, then it's just going to inflict stun on the enemy as it hits them. I used to use this skill often, and I actually have a build for a Massacre Gley, but I don't really use it that often, and it is kind of a specialty type thing, so we just use the normal everyday build now. And then finally, her passive skill is called Thirst, which says she cannot have a shield or an MP. Now when she's in a non-frenzied state, you do get a little bit of damage reduction. It's only 4%, but it's damage reduction. So there is some merit to not running around constantly in a frenzied state, especially when you're first starting out a mission, but honestly, 4% is not that much. So if you want to go ahead and go frenzied from the start and just go right into it, that's your choice. So now we're going to take a look at what type of modules and Arche tuning I use. My goal here is I want to be able to go frenzied, and then I want to be able to use my 3 constantly. In order to do that, I need to get the cooldown as far down as I can, plus I also need to get the duration up. And I want to have as much HP as possible. I'm going to leave this here so you can screenshot that if you want. And then we're going to go through each one of them and kind of explain why we're using it and what benefits we're getting from it. So we'll take just a minute here to stare. That should be good enough, right? Okay, so first thing we do is we have a Transcendent module, Predator Instinct. This is the one that, as I'm using a firearm while it's shooting, it's gradually increasing attack. Any kind of attack bonus is great, more damage per bullet. So it's a wonderful thing. Next up, we have Increased HP. This is a very common one. Almost every build's going to have this. This just increases our HP by 200%, 218.5 to be exact. Next up, we have HP Collector. This is a very what's the word I'm looking for? Underrated, there you go. It's a very underrated module. So when defeating an enemy, I recover 9% of my max HP every 2 seconds. For a character that uses her HP to power her skills, being able to kill somebody and get some of that HP back is really huge. This is something I use in the beginning with every character, but it works really well with Gley. Next we have Battle of Stamina, which is max HP plus 120%. But the big bonus here is we're getting that skill duration, that plus 8%. Next up, we've got Increased Defense. Again, something you put on almost everybody, just 160% defense increase. I use Shot Focus, which gives me a plus 15 to my firearm attack, but it does drag my skill power modifier down a little bit. technically that's okay because we don't really use the power of our skills, they just enhance weapons. So losing that 15%, while that will affect our dimension skills if we use them, for the other ones, doesn't really have that much of an effect. And it also is the kind of same thing here. We're picking up a 77% increase on focus on non-attribute. The reason we have it is because we also picking up that 6% skill cooldown. And that's something that we definitely wanted. So we also have maximized duration, which although we're getting a minus 20 on our skill modifier, we're getting a 40% increase on duration, which is huge. Next we have skill extension. Again, this has given us a 36.5% bonus to our skill duration. We have nimble fingers, which gives us an additional 25.6 skill cooldown. Again, this is a module that's pretty common to have on anybody. And finally, we have MP conversion, which is a great module to have on Gley because the penalty is that you get minus 15% max MP. She doesn't have MP. So all we're getting is an additional bonus of 36.5% reduction on skill cooldown, which is great. The last slot, whatever you prefer. For me, I like mid-air maneuvering, but honestly, whichever one you like, drop it in there. As far as Arche tuning goes, I have two setups. One is the Everyday Gley, which focuses almost entirely on weapon attack. And then I also have a gun HP build, which still picks up a decent amount of attack, but the rest is picked up additional HP. Now, while most of the heavy lifting is being done by our modules, having a reactor with the skill cooldown and skill duration up is huge and is what helped me get to the point where I can throw a skill and it'll be cooled down before that skill actually ends, and I can just immediately throw it again. And here you'll see I've got a materialized dimension reactor with gold stats in both of those cases, skill duration up and skill cooldown. And I did take this over to the workbench and made sure that I made these the max points. So we're getting the maximum benefit, and this is what really allows me to be able to throw a skill and have it ready as soon as that skill goes back into cooldown. As far as external components, I like the Annihilation set. That one you get from Devourer. You can also get it from a 400 dungeon. I think it's over on Vespers. But the reason I like this set so much is because it focuses mainly on defense and HP. Keep in mind, Gley doesn't have MP. She doesn't have a shield. So if you have any kind of an external component that's giving you a bonus in those areas, it's useless. You're not getting any kind of benefit from it. And of course, I took all these over to the workbench like I did with the reactor and made sure I maxed out all these skills. And each one of these, I get the resistances, whether it's the fire, the chill, the toxic. That kind of covers every base as far as any kind of damage I might be taking or any kind of boss that I might be fighting. And then I just have HP recovery, defense bonuses, things like that going across the rest of those components. The only one that really kind of screws me is with the processor, there is a shield bonus on it. And, you know, 3 out of 4 is not bad. But yeah, that shield recovery modifier is a useless set. But I'm getting that extra skill duration, plus my firearm attack is increasing proportional to HP versus HP lost. And any kind of attack bonus that we can get is definitely going to pay off dividends out there. So that's why I go with the Annihilation set and what I call my Elemental set, just to pick up those resistances. And this helps me be able to do so many of the different activities without having to make major changes and have to switch gear and switch components and keep track of things. I can just take this setup right here, pretty much just head into anything, and away we go. Now, no Gley video would be complete without bringing up the Last Dagger. With the addition of the weapons cores, so where you could kind of tune and customize weapons a little bit, the Last Dagger in Gley's hands is just phenomenal. And this is what you'll see me using when I'm doing Void Erosion Purge or taking on Colossi Battles. Because of its high rate of fire and the fact that cores can already, you can bonus that with the cores and additional firearm attacks, this thing just rocks. Once you throw your 1 and then pop your 3 to get that unlimited ammo, the rate of fire is so high, it's just a stream of bullets. I went a little crazy with mine here and kept rolling new cores into it. That's why you'll see I've got the 80% and the 20. I do have a 19% fire rate. It's the last thing on this gun that's not max bonus. I'll tell you what, here, we'll put a card up here. I'll link the video to where I went and did this. I would not really advise it unless you've got an abundance of materials that you don't care using, because it took a lot. It was very expensive to switch that gun around to get all those max stats on it. And I'm not really going to go into what my build is for the Last Dagger. It's a pretty standard build that you could find anywhere. Now you can screenshot this one here too. The only thing that I do really want to point out is I have a chill bonus on this, and I use that because freezing enemies is always great, and with the high rate of fire, everything's almost always frozen. But yeah, Last Dagger is huge as far as being in Gley's hands. So let's talk now about how you're actually going to use Gley, and this is what kind of screwed me over in the beginning, because I didn't really know how to use her. And this was, of course, like I said, before the days of, excuse me, before the days of weapons cores. But when we're over here, we're just going to do this here in the lab, just for examples. But you'll notice that when I shoot this gun, it kind of drifts upwards and to the right. And this is hands-free shooting right here. So the gun is just tracking up and right, up and right, up and right. So once you start using this out there, you're going to need to kind of pull, obviously, down and to the left to keep your bullets on your target. Honestly, that wall's pretty far away for a handgun, and you can get a little bit closer to your targets. Get a good clean shot in here, and I'll show you. This will work. Look out, Roach, in the way. All right, good enough. But here we're just going to try to keep it on that pillar. You'll see it'll drift a little bit, but down and to the left, you'll be able to go. And I want you to notice that my 3 is already back up before it is finished. That, again, is the key, and something huge that you're going to want to focus on. Follow the build and the steps. But let's actually go into Tormentor here, and we'll get some like live action on actually doing this. So I'm just aiming at his weak points, trying to drop him. Down he goes. We'll stay on that shoulder, and you'll see I'm starting to get 600,000 in some shots. He's going to go ahead and go crazy, so we'll give him the space. Now we're just trying to take those weak points again to drop him out of his frenzy. Now we're going to take some damage here. And I left this in because, you know, you don't show your bad things. You only show your awesome stuff. If you ever get killed and you respawn, make sure that you get crazy again. You got to hit your 1, because respawning, your 1 is going to shut off. And the last thing you're going to want to do is think that you're still frenzied. Throw that thing, throw your 3, and then it's just 12 bullets and it's done. But yeah, without trying, without doing crazy buttons, without doing anything insane, we were able to take out Tormentor. And I actually have a build for Tormentor that gets rid of some of the unnecessaries and picks up some antibody resistance to give me a little more toughness in that fight. And once you get it done, you can go ahead and play around with it yourself. But, well, that's it for this build. I've got some crystalline catalyst blueprints that I need to turn in, so we're going to go play with Executioner here. But I hope this helps, and I hope you can get into using Gley yourself and maybe have an easier time with some of that harder level content. But as always, guys, I'll see you out there. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.